That was Lindy with Breathe Again. You're on 94.9. It is 13 minutes past 4. And it's that time of day on a Tuesday for Creation Ministries International. And we have Dr. John in the studio. If you have any questions for Dr. John, you've got to send them through to our text line. Just SMS 0401 949 949. Good afternoon, Dr. John.
Afternoon, Mick.
Now, Dr. John, we often talk about Creation Ministries and, you know, who you are, what you do, and you often say you like to, pretty much tell us how the Bible's real.
Yeah, well, that's what it's all about. I mean, that's what we're all about, the truth of the Bible from the very first verse. Mm-hmm. And you'll find some very, very interesting things when you start to read it and believe that it is true history.
Yep.
And I really want to talk today about a subject that's fascinated Christians for a long, long time, centuries. Mm-hmm. And that's the children of Adam and Eve.
Yes.
Right. Now, if I mention the children of Adam and Eve, all right, at the beginning of chapter 4 in Genesis, just after the fall and just after Adam and Eve got kicked out of the garden,
yep,
the Bible says that Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she gave birth to Cain, right?
Yep.
And she then said, I've gotten me a man with the help of the Lord, right? And then a little bit later she has Abel. It doesn't really say anything more about that. But obviously Cain and Abel then grow up and they become adults because they're both farmers.
Yep.
Abel's a shepherd and Cain's grows stuff in the field.
Yep.
And then they bring their offering to the Lord, and the Lord likes Abel's offering, but he doesn't like Cain's. Mm-hmm. So Cain gets all jealous and decides to knock Abel off, which he does. And we all know that story, but it doesn't say exactly how old Cain and Abel were then, right? We can presume they were adults, but we don't really know how old they were.
Yep.
But then Eve then has Seth, which she says is God's replacement for Abel,
yep,
right? And we read later on that Adam was 130 when Seth was born. Well, Eve obviously was 130 as well because she was the same age as Adam. But it also says that about Adam that he had other sons and daughters. Mm-hmm. Now, Seth was born 130 years after creation, but those other sons and daughters must have been around somewhere between Cain, Abel, and Seth.
Yep.
Right, and the reason we know that is because when Cain gets banished out of Eden by the Lord after he murders Abel, he goes and lives east of Eden, and he's got a wife. So where did he get his wife from?
Yes.
Now, I mean, that in itself, of course, is a fantastic question, because it was the trick question that the prosecution witnesses couldn't answer in the famous Scopes monkey trial. Remember this is fantastic. We're right at the centenary of it, right? Because it was back in 1925 in Tennessee in May. Okay, so so I reckon you'll probably maybe some of the other speakers will talk about it because it may well be in the news because it's just about the centenary. Anyway, what happened was the state of Tennessee, which is one of the southern states, the Bible Belt and whatever, they passed a law in March of 1925 forbidding the teaching of evolution in schools. Right, so the American Civil Liberties Union, which is a rotten to the core mob anyway, right? They decided that they would challenge that, and they got this high school teacher called John Snopes, right? And they got him to teach in his biology class that humans had evolved from apes.
Right.
Well, of course, he got prosecuted, didn't he? And then he, but the defence at his trial asked the question, who was Cain's wife? Where did Cain get his wife? And they couldn't answer it because they didn't know what the Bible says, that Adam and Eve had other sons, or that Adam anyway had other sons and daughters.
Yep.
And Hollywood eventually made that into a movie called Inherit the Wind. And they had Spencer Tracy playing the part of the smart lawyer Clarence Darrow, who worked out the trick question that was going to stump him. And of course Hollywood made that pretty anti-Bible and very pro-evolution. I mean, the bloke was found guilty and he was fined, but unfortunately the ignorance of those witnesses set the creation message back decades and really gave a great impetus to evolution because they couldn't answer the question. And if we go back to that patriarchal lineage, Seth is born, and then there's all the other named patriarchs after him, and I mean they all get mentioned in Jesus' genealogy. So when we come back, I'll talk a little bit more about that.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Anyway, they were all said to have had other sons and daughters.
Yep.
And there's no mention that, despite the fact that they're mentioned in Jesus' genealogy, there's no mention that they were particularly godly people, apart from Enoch, who was translated, God took him. He walked with God for 300 years,
Yep.
right? But he also had other sons and daughters, and it's not until we get down to Noah that we find another one who says Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. So we don't know that they were particularly godly people. But there's another question that crops up, because the Bible talks about people called the sons of God. Now, are these patriarchs the sons of God? Because it says that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were attractive, and they took them as wives, and they produced offspring from them, and it calls them the Nephilim, or the giants.
Yeah.
Now, who were these sons of God? Right? Now, people have said, maybe they were fallen angels or demons or whatever. But if they were fallen angels or demons, they wouldn't have had a physical body. So how could they have had a relationship with women, right? So I'm suggesting that maybe these patriarchs who were named were actually the sons of God. Now, we know Adam was called the sons of God. When we look at Luke's gospel and we see Luke taking Jesus' genealogy back through all of these named patriarchs to Adam, and it says Adam was the son of God. And we also know that Adam said that Seth was Adam was made in the likeness of and image of God, and when it talks about Seth, it said that Adam had a son in his own likeness and image. So I'm suggesting that maybe they were the sons of God. Now, that's a bit of a contentious issue, because a lot of people want to think that they might have been the progeny of fallen angels. Now, I agree that's a possibility, but I suspect that they might have been those named patriarchs, right? And who were the daughters of men, possibly the female progeny of the Cain line. Right, so here we've got these two possibilities. But the other thing that's very interesting in Genesis, it says that these Nephilim or giants were in the earth in those days, and also afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
After what? Presumably after the flood.
Yeah.
Now, if everybody got wiped out in the flood, apart from the 8 people who were in the ark, how is it that these Nephilim or giants exist before the flood and also afterwards? Because we can presume that they got wiped out in the flood. How is it that they existed afterwards? Well, the only way
Genes.
but you see, let's think of Noah. Now, Noah was a godly man, and when he's 500 years old, the Bible says he has 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we know that Japheth is referred to as the elder, but later on we read that Shem was 100 years old 2 years after the flood, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if the flood came when Noah was 600, and at 500 he has Shem, Ham, and Japheth, then Shem is actually not born for another 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And Ham is later referred to as the younger son, right? So that means he's younger than Shem. So when God appears to Noah when he's 500, at least 2 of those boys are not born. So, they can't be part of the wicked people who were around, because, they're only, Japheth is probably only a baby, and the other 2 haven't yet been born.
Yep.
Okay, so this means that the Nephilim are the ones who get wiped out in the flood. But when the flood comes, when Noah is 600 years old, those boys are now grown up. Shem is obviously 98 and Ham's probably 96 or whatever. But they come on board with their wives.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where did they get their wives from? Right? Now, when we look a little bit further after the flood, we find who were the giants. Right? Now, there are a number of people referred to as giants in the Old Testament. Mm-hmm. There's Og, the king of Bashan, right? Mm-hmm. There's the sons of Anak. So Anak and his sons, obviously, are gigantic people. And then there's Goliath and his brothers. Mm-hmm. Now, if you have a look at where their genealogy is, they are all descended from Ham. Okay?
Yep.
So, how did those giant genes get through the flood? They must have been in Ham's wife.
Mm-hmm.
I reckon. That common sense. I can't see any other way.
Wow.
So I'm making the suggestion that the sons of God were the patriarchs, that the daughters of men were the women who were descended from Cain, that they produced these Nephilim or giants. They were all wiped out in the flood, but one of the women got through the flood as Cain's wife.
Yep.
There you go.
Wow. Oh, if you've got any questions for Dr. John, please send them through to our text line, SMS 0401 949 949. We've got a song coming up next by Ginny Owens, The Loudest Voice. That was We the Kingdom and Tasha Cobbs with Holy Water. You're on 94.9. It's 23 minutes to 5. And we have Dr. John in the studio from Creation Ministries International. He's been talking to us a little bit about, the days of Genesis and some of the things that, may have happened during that period. Very good chance of it. I've got to say, Dr. John, I think your version of the Nephilim is so much better than the movie Noah with those giant rock ents. They just didn't quite fit with me. I thought, no, they don't quite fit my version of the Bible. But, of course, a lot of people have slightly different versions of what happened back then based on the words in the Bible because it can be taken slightly differently in many cases, can't it?
That's true. Of course, the movie Noah was not based on the Bible. You know that, don't you?
Well, very loosely. Very loosely.
It was actually based on a bit of an esoteric Jewish belief called the Kabbalah. Right, yeah. So it didn't follow the Bible. It followed, I think, might be the Talmud.
Yeah, okay. Well, I thought it was a little weird. Anyway.
Anyway, that's... that's Hollywood, they'll
yes,
do
now,
whatever.
Dr. John, we often talk about news as well. And I'm pretty sure you would have seen in the last week on the news that some crazy, amazing scientists have just recreated the dire wolf that's been, extinct for a long. No one would have ever seen it that's alive on Earth today.
Well, no, I wouldn't agree with that either.
No?
But no, they do know that this dire wolf is extinct.
Yep.
But how long ago is arguable, and it's probably only a matter of a few thousand years.
Yep.
And the point is to recreate this dire wolf.
Yep.
And they were beautiful little white puppies anyway.
Yes, they were very cute, I've got to say.
They were. To recreate...
They look too cute to be something as well with a name like direwolf.
Well, yeah, well, they would have been pretty tame too, I reckon. But they were lovely little pups. But what they apparently did is they well, first of all, I should say that they got some dire wolf DNA, and they got it out of fossils, but not quite the sort of fossils that you think of when you think of dinosaur fossils, right? If anybody who's been to the dinosaur fossil beds in Queensland, outback Queensland,
Yep.
They're like normal dinosaur fossils encased in sandstone. And when you see the people trying to clean the bones and whatever, they're using those air-powered, dental drills to scrape the dirt and clay off, that sort of thing, to free up the bones. Well, they're not quite those, and the main fossils have come from a place in LA called the La Brea tar pits.
Okay.
So they're not in sandstone, they're in some form of asphalt. So whereas the dinosaur fossils in outback Queensland have been formed in the flood, these other ones I think are post-flood.
Yep.
So they're probably, I would think that people would have seen dire wolves. But anyway, what is a dire wolf? Well, it's just a big wolf. Right,
Yep.
It was about 10% bigger than the biggest wolf around now, the grey wolf. But they examined the DNA of the currently existing grey wolf and also these dire wolves that they extracted DNA from.
Yep.
And it was practically the same. It was about 99.5% similar. So all they really did was a pretty clever sort of technique to manage to get the grey wolf DNA and add a few different genes from the dire wolves to it. And somehow, I don't know how they make these clone embryos or whatever that they do, but they then implanted them into dogs, right? And the dogs delivered these dire wolf pups, and they were so called. Now a lot of people have scoffed at it and said, yeah, well, you might call it a dire wolf if you like, but really it's just a grey wolf with a bit of different genes, and they're only friendly pups. Anyway,
of course, they use CRISPR, where they cut out little tiny bits of the genome, and paste them into the other.
Yeah. Anyway, look, it really, it's a very, very clever technology, but and it's the sort of thing that you would imagine they're going to continue to try and improve on to do other things,
like the woolly mammoth.
Well, we'll get to that in a minute too.
Okay.
But let's face it, a dire wolf and a grey wolf and a dog, they're all dogs, really.
Yes.
So it wasn't all that difficult to implant the embryo into the womb of a dog.
Yep.
And then, of course, the dog has the pup, and obviously whatever pup a dog has is not going to be a wild wolf. It's going to be a dog pup. So that's. I mean, it was very, very clever technology, but at the end of the day, they probably haven't recreated the dire wolf. But as they progress and progress and progress with that, they may be able to do a few different things. Now, I mean, the next thing they're apparently going to work on, or they're working on at the same time, not just the woolly mammoths, but the Tasmanian tiger.
Yep.
Now, the Tasmanian tiger is a very, very different kettle of fish because it's a marsupial. I mean, a dog has a womb, right? Well, marsupials don't, and apparently the marsupial with the genome that's closest to the Tasmanian tiger is a little mouse-like marsupial called a
Looks
dunner.
nothing like them. Yeah.
So nothing like it. And of course, marsupials are born as little pink grub-like things, and then they crawl up the mother's fur and crawl into the pouch and latch onto a teat and just develop there. So it's a completely different system to a dog or a wolf.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be quite so easy to get anywhere with the Tasmanian tiger, and they don't have a surrogate mother that's anything like the Tasmanian tiger. I mean, a dog is like a wolf, but a little dunnart is not like a Tasmanian tiger. So that's going to be a little bit difficult. But it's also going to be quite difficult to do the woolly mammoth.
Yeah.
Because let's face it,
It looks a lot like an elephant.
It does, yeah. But a dog has a gestation period of about 9 weeks. Whereas an elephant's about 16 months, I think. It might even be more than that. And, I mean, dogs are quite friendly. You can play with dogs easily enough. But having a herd of elephants in your laboratories, not that easy, And they know that the elephant with the closest genome to the woolly mammoth is the Asian elephant. But if you've got to anaesthetise an elephant and put it up on an operating table to implant it with an embryo, that's not the easiest thing.
Yeah, you need a big table.
You need a big table. You need a lot of anaesthetic,
Yep.
and you need pretty big cages in your laboratory. It's not
Yes.
like a mouse cage. The elephant takes up a bit of room.
Yeah.
And so there will be a certain number of difficulties with working on woolly mammoths.
Yes.
So
Well, we talk about bringing him back, but I mean, what I heard with this whole direwolf, it's a bit like saying, we want to recreate an old Porsche 911, and we've got this old Holden here, so we're just going to put like the Porsche wheels on and the Porsche bonnet on, and it looks a little bit more like a Porsche olden day 911. This is sort of what they've done with the direwolf. They've only replaced little bits of it. It's not all of it.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, you've got like you said, the body of the Porsche, but the innards of it are probably might be Holden or something
Yes.
like that. So you're calling it a reconstructed Porsche, but it's not really a Porsche.
Yeah. Well, that's the same thing as this direwolf, and I wonder if while they've been talking about these. Mammoths, woolly mammoths and Tasmanian tigers, and bringing them back from the brink, they've gone beyond the brink, bringing them back, they're not really going to be bringing them back. They're going to bring something back that kind of looks like them.
Yeah, it'll be an Asian elephant with a couple of mammoth genes.
Yeah,
a furry Asian elephant with big tusks.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's about as close to a woolly mammoth as it's going to be. But yeah, look, it's all very interesting stuff. It's great cutting edge scientific technology, but and it's a lot of fun to talk about. But,
Yes.
but will it really happen? Then
Yes.
I don't think so.
Yes. You're on 94.9. What an interesting afternoon. It is 12 minutes to 5. We've got Sarah Reeves up next. Billboards on Sunset. Good afternoon.